10 years ago, I stood in my parents' living room holding a folder that contained everything I'd built. My first startup. It wasn't glamorous. I didn't have investors. I didn't have a fancy office. I didn't have employees sitting in a polished conference room. I had one laptop, a cheap desk, a rented room above a grocery store, and a handful of clients who believed in me. But I had something that mattered more. I had a dream. The company was called Northbridge Systems. The idea had started when I was working at a small accounting firm. I noticed how many local businesses were still using paper invoices, spreadsheets, and handwritten customer records. I thought there had to be a better way. So I built one. For nearly 2 years, I worked 18-hour days. I coded until 2 in the morning. I answered customer calls before sunrise. I ate instant noodles so often that I eventually stopped buying plates and ate directly from the container. Sometimes I made less money than I would have earned working a normal job. But every time a customer told me, "Your software saved my business," I felt like I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. My first client was a small family-owned bakery. The owner, Mr. Harris, had accidentally lost 3 months of sales records. I built a simple system that backed everything up automatically. He paid me $300. I remember staring at that payment on my screen for almost 10 minutes. $300. To someone else, it wasn't much. To me, it was proof. Someone was willing to pay for something I had created. I called my parents. "Mom, Dad, I got my first client." My mother laughed. "That's wonderful, honey." My father asked, "How much did they pay?" $300. There was silence. Then he said, "Well, everyone has to start somewhere." I smiled. I didn't hear the doubt in his voice. I only heard the encouragement I wanted to hear. A few months later, I had 10 clients. Then 20. Then 30. The business started growing faster than I could manage. I hired a college student part-time to help with customer support. Then another. For the first time, Northbridge wasn't just an idea. It was a real company. And then came the contract that changed everything. A regional restaurant chain contacted me. They had 37 locations. They wanted my software installed across all of them. The contract was worth nearly $80,000 a year. I read the email 3 times because I couldn't believe it. Then I ran downstairs screaming, "Mom!" My mother was sitting in the kitchen. "Dad!" My father walked in from the garage. "What happened?" "We got it." "Got what?" "The contract." I showed them the email. My father read it carefully. His eyebrows rose. 80,000. Almost. He looked at me differently that day. For the first time, I thought he was proud. My mother hugged me. "I knew you could do it." I believed her. That night, we celebrated with takeout. I remember thinking that maybe everything had finally changed. Maybe my parents finally understood me. Maybe they finally saw that my crazy idea wasn't so crazy. But there was another person at the table. My younger sister, Emily. She had recently graduated from college. She was smart, charming, and extremely confident. My parents constantly compared us. Emily is better with people. Emily understands business. Emily has connections. She'd be excellent at managing clients. I tried not to let it bother me. Emily wasn't interested in technology. She had never written a line of code. She had never spent 16 hours fixing a bug. She had never called a client at midnight because their system had crashed. But my parents believed she had something I didn't have. Polish. Confidence. Social skills. I told myself it didn't matter. Results would speak for themselves. And for a while, they did. Northbridge grew. I moved out of the tiny rented room and opened a small office. We had 8 employees. Then 12. I was working 7 days a week. I was exhausted, but I was happy. One afternoon, my father visited the office. He walked around slowly. He looked at the employees. Then he looked at me. "You've really built something." I smiled. "Thanks, Dad." He nodded. "You should let Emily help." I laughed. "She doesn't know the software. She doesn't need to. What would she do?" "Sales." I thought about it. "Maybe eventually." My father frowned. "Why not now?" "Because I need someone who understands the product." He stared at me. "You always think you know better." I didn't understand why he sounded angry. "I just want the company to work." "Exactly." He walked away. That conversation bothered me for weeks. Then, one Friday evening my father called. "Come home." His voice sounded serious. "Why?" "Just come home." When I arrived, my parents were sitting at the dining table. Emily was there too. Nobody smiled. I immediately knew something was wrong. My mother pushed a folder toward me. "What is this?" My father leaned back. "We've made a decision." "About what?" "Your company." I laughed nervously. "My company?" Emily looked down. My father nodded. We think Emily should take over. I stared at him. Take over what? The business. For a moment, I honestly thought they were joking. Then my mother said, we've decided you're not ready to run something this big. My heart began pounding. I've been running it for 2 years. Yes, she said. And we've been watching. I looked at Emily. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Why is she here? My father answered. Because we're giving her the client portfolio. I didn't understand. The what? Your clients. The room seemed to tilt. You're giving my clients to Emily? My mother sighed. Don't make this emotional. Those are contracts I negotiated. We know. I built the software. We know. I built the company. My father looked at me. And we believe Emily can take it further. I laughed. It was the kind of laugh that comes when something is so absurd that your brain refuses to accept it. You're serious? Yes. I stood. You can't just give away my company. My father pushed the folder toward me. We already contacted the clients. My stomach dropped. What? We told them you're stepping away. I stared at him. You told my clients I was stepping away? They agreed to continue with Emily. No. My voice became quiet. No, they didn't. My mother looked away. We handled it. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of contracts, client lists, emails, transfer documents, everything. They had planned it. This wasn't an argument. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a takeover. My own parents had dismantled the company I had spent years building, and they had done it behind my back. I looked at Emily. Did you know? Her eyes filled with tears. I knew they wanted me to take over. When, a few weeks ago, I felt something inside me break. A few weeks. She nodded. And you didn't tell me? I was scared. Of what? She whispered. Of losing my chance. I stared at her. What chance? To finally have something of my own. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You could have built something. She looked down. But you already had everything. I shook my head. No. I pointed toward the folder. You didn't want to build something. You wanted mine. Nobody spoke. Then my father said, you're being dramatic. I looked at him. Dramatic? Yes. You just took 2 years of my life. We gave your sister an opportunity. No. I picked up the folder. You destroyed my opportunity. My mother stood. Where are you going? I looked at her. Home. This is your home. I shook my head. Not anymore. I walked toward the door. My father followed. You'll regret this. I stopped. For 1 second, I considered turning around. Begging them to reconsider. Begging my sister to give the clients back. Begging my parents to understand what they had done. Then I remembered something. Every client they had taken had once said yes to me. Not them. Me. I turned around. You know what? My father stared at me. I don't think I'll regret leaving. My mother looked hurt. Where will you go? I looked at the keys in my hand. Forward. Then I walked out. I had no idea that night would be the beginning of the hardest chapter of my life. I had no idea I would lose almost everything. And I certainly didn't know that 10 years later, the same 3 people sitting at that table would come back to my office asking me for help. Because by then, the company they had stolen from me would be worth millions. And the man they thought they had broken would have built something they could never take away. For the next several months, I lived as if someone had erased the last 2 years of my life. Every morning, I woke up expecting to see the Northbridge dashboard. Instead, there was nothing. The company email account had been shut down. My access to the client database was gone. The office keys no longer worked. Even the employees I had personally hired had been told they were now working for Emily. I stood outside that office one morning, staring through the glass. My name was gone from the door. Emily's name was underneath the Northbridge logo. I couldn't move. That logo had been drawn by me on a piece of notebook paper at 3 in the morning. I had spent hours choosing the font. I had celebrated when we finally printed business cards. Now it belonged to someone else. I turned around and walked away. I didn't cry until I reached my car. That was the first time I understood what it meant to lose something without having the right to mourn it. People kept telling me to move on. Start another company. Get a job. Maybe this is a blessing. They didn't understand. It wasn't just a company. It was proof that I could build something. And my own family had taken that proof away. For several weeks, I barely spoke to my parents. They called. I didn't answer. My mother sent messages. Please come home. I ignored them. My father sent one sentence. You need to stop being stubborn. I deleted it. Then, one evening, I received an email from an old client. The subject line said, I know what happened. I opened it. The client wrote, I was told you voluntarily transferred